Okay, so let's get started. We have a way to ease you into your weekend. So let me do this and share this with you.
From Mandy Owens in Gentry, Arkansas. Dear Ellen, my daughter loves to draw. This is her latest drawing. Well, that's sweet. And you want to keep things like that. I hope they mounted that on the refrigerator. Yeah. From Denise Miller in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I took this picture in Washington, D.C. on the 4th of July. Well, it's been a while, but is it supposed to do that? From Leanne Durham in Berea, Kentucky. This sign was posted on the door of the maintenance shop at the Somerset Mall. Mall maintenance shop. We can repair anything. Please knock hard on the door. The bell doesn't work. That's where I'm going. From Amber Alexander in Muncie, Indiana. I was browsing around the Walgreens and I came across this pregnancy test. If we zoom in a little bit closer. Yep. Well, chances are if you're looking for a pregnancy test, you already know where to find the wine. This is from Meredith Siles in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was looking through some old photos and found this. Oh, she's doing arts and crafts. Zoom in. That's nice. She's making the best Father's Day card ever. From Paula Foster in Northwood, Ohio, a group of us were going to lunch when we spotted this sign. Vasectomy on a budget. Well, listen, I understand when you're living on a budget, you have to make little cuts everywhere. See on the sign on the bottom, if you go in again, it says gift certificates available. That's wonderful because nothing says I love you like I don't think you should reproduce.
All righty, thank you so much, Ellen. Always a pleasure. There you go. Tammy Kranich, where are you?
Happy Friday, everyone. Best favorite time of the week. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool, because I just got these earbuds and I'm still testing them out, so good. Okay, today I wanted to talk to you guys about credit scores. This has been like the thing I've heard all week, and it's going to be the topic of my Mortgage Monday on Facebook Live this week. So credit scores for lending purposes go down to 580. In some cases, I know some lenders have kind of pulled back on that a little bit. Down to 580, up to 800. And it's not just about the credit score, it's about your whole credit profile. So when you go to the doctor and you have blood work done, it's not just about your cholesterol number, but it's about the whole thing, what your sugar levels are, what is your all these different, what is your blood count, all these different things that are determined in your health. Well, for your financial health, it's not just about the credit score. It's about the whole picture. Credit scores are used to determine your interest rate, which most of us know. And credit scores are also used to determine what your mortgage insurance is going to be. So a lot of people will say, well, Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, insert your online credit company, said my credit score is X. And then in most cases, when the lenders pull that credit score, it's usually lower. And that's because those companies are using a different scoring model than what mortgage companies use. So Credit Karma, etc., they are good tools and guides to help you determine if you're on the right track. If you have a 600 credit score with Credit Karma, you probably have a low credit score with a mortgage lender. So it's a guide, it's not the gospel. I always like to say that Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, all that stuff is like going to WebMD for a diagnosis. It's helpful, but it's not always accurate. So let's see. And the last thing I wanted to say about credit scores were that, actually, I just lost my train of thought. So it determines your interest rate, mortgage insurance. Oh, a lot of what I've been hearing too is that if you pull my credit scores are going to drop. You are allowed to shop for a mortgage. We don't like you to, but you're allowed to shop for a mortgage. It's not going to drop your credit score in a 30-day period. Credit Karma scores, I've noticed, might drop. So if you're at a 700 or an 800 and your Credit Karma score might drop 10 points, that has nothing to do with your overall credit profile as far as what we as lenders are looking at. Your credit score is not going to drop 10 points from us if you have your credit pulled 2 or 3 times in a 30-day period. We can't control Credit Karma and all those guys. So that's a lot of information to digest in 3 minutes. So if you have any questions about it, please reach out to me. But I hope that kind of clears up some of the credit scoring mystery for everyone. Happy Friday.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. We appreciate that information as always. A couple of quick things for you this afternoon before I release you and unleash you on your weekend. Number one, a few hours ago, the PPPFA was signed into law by the president. For those of you who don't know what the PPPFA is, it's the Payroll Protection Program Flexibility Act. So we now have new rules. So for those of you, I'm so glad that we did not host I purposely held the PPP conversation till next week, knowing that they were talking this week about potential adjustments in this program. So the good news is that for those of you who receive PPP loans, there are some new guidelines and some new flexibility around how you can use the money and when you can use the money. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Adonis, can you confirm for me that we put that PPP class on Monday at either 11 or 1? Could you just take a look for me and let us know?
Monday, hold on. Monday's at 1 o'clock.
Okay, so Monday at 1 o'clock, for those of you who receive PPP funding and want to kind of walk through what that looks like and how to use it and what the new guidelines are versus the old guidelines, I will study up over the weekend and make sure that we have up-to-date information for you Monday at 1. The good news is I have no movies to see and nothing else to do over the weekend, so it's awesome to have a new federal law come into play on Friday afternoon so that I have something to focus my time on. So that's kind of breaking news. Other breaking news, I did receive information back from the MLS. And so here's what I want to start off by saying. I want to start off by saying that guys, I'm not sure we're going to win this fight. And so start gearing up for the potential conversations that you may have to have with your sellers. Here's the email I got back from Kathy Elson when I had to proactively ask at 2:30 today for an update because I would like to not have form chaos this weekend. So I asked for an update and she came back to me and said, our attorney has reviewed the revised form that you sent and stands by The only precondition that can be required to permit an in-person showing of an active listing is compliance with currently effective Connecticut law in the form of the governor's executive orders. Particularly, parties participating in a showing are required to wear a face covering and maintain a 6-foot separation distance. Groups at this time are limited to 5 or less through June 20th, when that restriction may be eased. Any restrictions beyond these cannot be required. If the seller is not prepared to accept this rule when they are free, then they are free to take their property off the market until health conditions change. Rick, on Monday we were having a board meeting, a board of directors meeting. I will bring up your concerns and your proposed solutions, and I will let you know what happens on Monday. So that is the proverbial, hold on. Let me stop the recording a second. So you know how I responded. I called her and she wouldn't take my call. But I did respond and say, okay, that's great. Thank you for that. Please send me clearly the sections of the MLS rules and regulations that justify your attorney's position. Because if you can show me where it says that and he's interpreting it that way, well, then we may just have to throw in the towel. I don't believe it exists because I've been through them numerous times this week alone, and I don't believe that section exists, right? And the other thing I said to her was, wait a minute, so when we first had this conversation a few days ago, you told me it was a fair housing issue, and now fair housing has seemed to go out the window, and now it's you can only do things that the governor says are required. Like, which is it? You can't just keep changing the reason every time I shoot down one of the last one. So I was going to release the new form that I had prepared for you because I thought it was a simpler form. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to send you a new form only on Monday for us to be really shut down completely. We may have no choice because the only other opportunity is to be removed from the MLS if we keep pushing it, and I don't think anybody on this call wants that. So know that the opportunity for you to have your sellers, if you want to get ahead of form chaos for this weekend, you may have to start letting your sellers know that we're doing our best to fight to keep this requirement in place, and we're getting pushback from the powers that be that run the multiple listing service and their attorneys for reasons that we can't quite wrap our arms around. We've actually prepared a different version of this form, and they're not saying that they're going to allow that either. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, understand for this weekend, you may have to make some choices about whether or not to require this form or not. And if you choose to continue to require it, by Monday or Tuesday, we may have consequences that we have to deal with from that, which may mean pulling your house off the market if that's your decision across the board. So I would start floating that balloon with your sellers this weekend. Start having that conversation. You'll get an email from me after we finish this call. Now that I've gotten that answer, so I just have to adjust it a little bit, and I'll give you some thoughts about how to start talking with sellers. Again, seller's choice. If the seller doesn't want it, then make it easy on everybody and get rid of it. If the seller doesn't want it. If the seller does want it, you're going to have to start having conversations that backpedal a little bit on the promises that we made. I wish I had different news for you this afternoon. I do not. And as of right now, until I know exactly what they're going to do on Monday, again, part of the solution I proposed was that they grandfather any listings that were on the market prior to today. That was one of the solutions that I pushed her way, to say that it's only fair. We promised these people because the rule wasn't in place. And so give us that opportunity to only have new listings come to the market so that the new conversations with new sellers aren't a promise that we feel like we have to go back and break. Kathy's going to be meeting with the board of directors on Monday to see if she can't make something like that occur. We'll see what happens. Well, here's what I can tell you. Optimistically, I say don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. So that's my MLS update for you. Happy Friday, yay! So two more things before we finish. The first is public open houses. So we are now 2 weeks in to our reopening plan, and we did say that a couple of things might change after the first 2 weeks. One of those is we are looking at figuring out the guidelines to be able to officially encourage public open houses. Today, please note that that CTR, the state doesn't prohibit it, as long as you maintain face masks and social distancing and no groups of a certain number or more. CTR is still dissuading us from having public open houses. I've had a couple of questions in the last couple of days from many of you saying, so like how long will we wait before we move back to a public open house venue? Can we start doing something now with certain guidelines? And the answer is that there is nothing that, especially as independent contractors, there is nothing that prevents you. The Market Center is not taking a stand that says you're prohibited from doing public open houses. I am finishing guidelines that I will release to you by later tonight or by tomorrow morning at the absolute latest, that say if you're going to be doing a public open house, here are the guidelines we suggest that you follow. Again, all of those face masks and social distancing, no groups. We're going to encourage one couple in the house at a time only, everyone else waiting outside. We're going to encourage, where possible, appointment only open houses, whereas you might advertise an open house, but they have to make an appointment to be there for the open house so that you know who to expect and what to expect. So certain things like that we're still trying to get our arms around to be able to release to you. I look at this from the perspective of a week or two ago, I guess last week, or Memorial Day weekend, we drove down to visit my 91-year-old grandmother who lives by herself on Long Island. And we hadn't seen her since my birthday back in March because she has been in like complete isolation, right? And so when we reopened, the thought was, okay, so now we're reopened, nothing's different than it was in March. So we have to start figuring out how to feather back in some of the things that we were doing, like a visit to grandma. So I'm not going to see my grandmother until there's a vaccine or a cure, right? You're not going to have a public open house for the next 12 months or so, is my thought. So for those of you who have sellers who will allow it, and for those of you who choose to start dipping your toe in the pool of getting back to some version of a public open house, we will release those guidelines in the next 15 or so hours so that you can start making plans to get back into that if you so choose. Again, your seller will need to okay that. If you're looking for other opportunities to host open houses in someone else's inventory, you may have to ask, like I may have to call Nancy and say, hey, Nancy, do you have that new listing you have? Is your seller open to open houses? That you'll have to have a discussion around that. But certainly for your own inventory, if you so choose, we can start looking at safe ways for you to get back into that practice. Questions, comments, concerns about that?
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
My question in the comments, which is gaining a little traction, was about the pre-approvals that we require to show the property. Can we still do that, or is she balking about that too?
So that hasn't come back specifically, except one time this week from an agent who I think just didn't understand what was being asked for. So again, until we get more pushback on that, my answer would be keep that in place. We have not received specific complaints about requiring pre-approvals before a showing.
That's been across the board. I mean, everyone's asked me for one, so I don't think we're out of the ordinary. And it's advantageous to make sure that whoever you're showing the house to is fully ready to buy it. You know?
Agreed. And just by the
I
way,
agree, yeah.
I did use that ammunition in my argument with the MLS. Like, what is the difference between someone requiring? I mean, the governor didn't say you had to present a pre-approval letter. So what I meant to say was that's the same idea. I did not include that in what I sent to them because I don't want to bring that to their attention as well. So it's ammunition if we need it, but right now that hasn't been included in anything. Donna, go ahead.
Just two things. Agents have been requiring pre-approvals at a certain price point for 18 years that I've been in business. So that's nothing new. Westport, it's hard to show anything without doing that. But the other thing is on the other one, the health form. I didn't hear you say that I can't still request the form to be filled out. You just told me that I may not be able to require it for a showing. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct.
Thank you.
You have very, very astute ears.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Did everyone hear what Donna just said? Okay, good. So do watch for that open housing moving forward. And lastly, I wanted to provide you in our remaining minutes today with some stats, because I did run some stats for you just to give you an understanding idea of what's going on. These are Fairfield County based. I'll have the town specific ones for you early next week. Year to date. So year to date listings taken. If you remember, as we tracked this through the end of March, through the middle of April, through the end of April, right? We were like 70% down on listings, and then it kind of rebounded to about 50% down on listings year to date through the end of through the first part of May. And I haven't given you these stats since the middle of May, and they're kind of astonishing because the year-to-date listings taken number for countywide is down only 17%. 17% year-to-date. That's an enormous rebound from just a couple of weeks ago, right? And so what that means is people who were holding back their properties are putting them on. So remind your seller, that's a great stat to talk with your sellers about. If you have stubborn sellers who are unwilling to reduce the price of their home, they're kind of running out of time very quickly before all the other competition comes in, which will naturally reduce the price of their home for them, right? So they have a choice. They can still get out ahead of the rest of the competitors that come in, because I have a feeling by the end of June, we're going to be back on track. I have a feeling we're going to be at 0% down by the end of June. So just note that's occurring. Under contracts for the last month, for the month of May, this May actually is higher than last May with the number of properties under contract, right? It's impossible to give you an exact percentage because of last year's numbers being more of a guesstimate. But here's what I can tell you. Since Monday, which was June the 1st, today is Friday, June the 5th, in Fairfield County, 400 properties have gone under agreement. 400 properties since Monday. That's an enormous number, right? An enormous number. Now, I want to throw out a small caution, and I want to give you a preview of what we're going to be working on next week. I want you to be certain that you're not hearing those market numbers and converting that into, right now the market is kind of a cakewalk, so we can just kind of get up and skate through our days. I still believe that the next 30, 60, 90 days of what you do are the most important 90 days in the next 18 months in terms of your income. What you do in the month of June, followed by July and August, will certainly determine the remainder of your year and may well set the tone for next year. So we're going to spend some time next week. I know we have masterminds coming up. Watch the calendars for that. There's a Capper mastermind, I think, on Monday, and I think an all-agent mastermind on Tuesday. Plug into those masterminds where we're going to spend some time really kind of brainstorming through what does it look like to wake up and approach your business, attack your business with a take no prisoners mentality. What does that look like for you? How do you maintain it for 30, 60, 90 days? And how do you know, how can you prove to yourself, to your business, that that's how you're behaving, right? We need to take our unfair share in the next 90 days, and I want to make sure that we're all pointed very specifically in that direction with real action and real specific items that we're focused on to get us out the other side. Make sense? Yes, Lisa, those were Fairfield County stats that I gave. All right, guys, it is 4:57. I think that's everything on my list. Who else has a question, comment, or concern?
It's Kimberly. Quick
Hey.
question. Going back to the whole pre-approval and making those required, I don't know if I'm just sensitive about this, but when you started to talk about fair housing with the consent forms, it seems that if we all don't ask for those pre-approvals every time, then we run into a potential challenge if we don't do it for all visitors of our properties. Is that a true, would you agree with that, or am I just overthinking this?
Well, I think that the issue becomes during 11 weeks of lockdown and government intervention in our lives and in our businesses. It was far easier as a brokerage to make decisions that affect 450 independent contractors and their clients to create a sense of unity. Without those restrictions and without the backing of the governor, it gets much more difficult to do so. And so I don't disagree with what Kimberly said, that if we all ask for pre-approvals, I don't know why we wouldn't, right? But at the end of the day, we do have to start to move back to sellers making decisions about their properties and listing agents working with their individual sellers to make decisions about their properties. Because here's the thing. If everybody on this call agrees that we should be utilizing X, and everybody else not on this call doesn't agree we should be utilizing X, well, at some point, now we live inside of an organization that is preventing some of your colleagues from moving forward and running the business that they choose to run. And that is not the organization that we are, right? From you get to do your signs, you get to make decisions on commissions, you get to make your own decisions and run your own businesses. The last 11 weeks have been absolutely atypical in terms of us coming to you saying, here are the requirements, here's how we must do things. Now, that's not a cop-out on my part, I promise you. What it is me making sure that we continue to do what we need to do to move ourselves forward and still uphold the values and concepts of our organization. Now, a pre-approval letter doesn't all of a sudden make the KW value proposition collapse. That's not what I'm saying. However, at some point, all of those little things may start to add up. And I would rather err on the side of, as business owners, I respect the decisions that you make to make sure that your business is running the way you want and need it to run, and support it as much as we can from underneath, instead of be dictatorial and tell you that everyone must do this. Yes, I get it might weaken the position, and yet I can guarantee you that for the last 11 weeks, even though we made it required, not every single one of our listing agents was asking for it. I can guarantee you that. How do I know that? Because I've lived more than 15 minutes, right? And so I don't think it's been an issue yet. I don't expect it to be an issue moving forward. If that makes sense.
Yep, I'm good.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, guys, anything else before we depart for the weekend? Please do watch for 2 things from me in the next 15 hours. The first is a written update on the MLS forms thing and some direction and how to address, depending on the direction you and your seller go in, how to address that for the weekend. The second thing is the guideline for public open houses. Other than that, if you need anything else from us, you know where to find us. Please reach out. Have a great weekend. Have fun. It's supposed to be nice and warm. Go out for a nice run. And we'll see you back here Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Take care. Hey, Michael Brand, it's Rick Scott. Yes, to you as well. This one couldn't come fast enough. I don't know about for you. So yeah, she is one of our agents in Stamford, and she does rent this little solo office space in West Haven. No KW branding, no signs, no telephone directory. It's just where she works, and yes, and all that. I mean, she's been in this little space for 2 years, and I've never seen anything that broke the rules. The deal was she was only ever supposed to use the Stanford address when there was an address mentioned. So I'll have to address that with her. Where did you see that?
Do you know where she saw I mean, what you sent me, was that an ad on Facebook or? Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm fully versed on the rules because I've done it all wrong before and I've done it right before. So I know exactly what we did, and she is supposed to be living inside of those rules, and maybe it's been too long since she and I have had that conversation, because I think that's something new. Like I said, she's been doing that, but she's been having her little solo office space for like 2 years. It's not an office. So I'll apologize. I'll take care of it. Yeah, no worries. Can I ask you one more question while I have you? In a scenario where you now have a team cap as well, right? In your market centers. Got it. Okay. Okay. Right. Wow. Wow. I'm glad Andy Sachs can't commute to your market center. Because I think I would have lost. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I give kudos to Dan on that, and he pulled that one together. So, okay, well that's helpful. I just wanted to wonder what you were doing, because I don't know that I had ever spoken to you about what that looks like. 'Cause we did move a team cap, and he's the first one that's on it. So it'll be fun to move through. Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, let me let you go. Enjoy your weekend, and yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Awesome. You have an awesome weekend. Thanks. Bye.